Welcome back, Matt Davio, Miss Trade, here with Anne-Marie B. Anne-Marie is a trader. She's on the blogosphere. You can find her at annemarietrades.com. You can also follow her on Twitter on the stream at Anne-Marie2006. Anne-Marie, thanks for coming on. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're busy. You've got a family, and I know you keep busy with that. So I appreciate you taking the time this afternoon.
Thank you for asking me.
You're welcome. So you reside down in North Carolina. We talked a little bit off camera. You went to UNC Asheville, which, again, beautiful area there in the mountains. And then undergrad math. How does one get into be a math student? Because my wife is also a math major undergrad and a stats graduate degree like you have. So I'm wondering, what led you down that path?
Wow, that's a good question. I think I like difficult things.
Okay.
And I don't know that math was particularly simple for me, but it was very entertaining. And I try to entertain myself.
So, I mean, but once you get past, again, were you thinking, again, undergrad, were you thinking, Calc 2, 3, and 4, and then you start you start competing with the engineers at differential equations and those types of things. I mean, were you like taking that line that I'm going to be an engineer? Were you thinking something else? Because I don't think most people really start thinking that they're going to go to math.
You know what? You're right, and I chose math as I chose math because I liked it and I felt it would provide me a challenge, but I always thought I would have higher education, so I actually wanted to be a college professor for a while. And then I met a lot of them and thought I wouldn't fit in at all.
Did you work with any profs? I mean, did you do any student teaching during your masters or anything like that?
Did I what?
Did you do any student teaching? Especially when you were working on your master's degree, did you run some classes? Did you teach?
Oh yes, I did. I did teach.
What did you teach? Which classes?
Statistics.
Okay.
Statistics.
And
I taught the classes that no one else wants to take, like they're seniors, they can't graduate without it.
Right.
Yeah.
The Stats 101 that you have to have for your sociology degree, psychology degree.
Yeah.
So again, you get into this. You get into math. What was your favorite class as an undergrad? I'm curious.
Differential equations.
Okay, and why?
They really have so much practical application to the world.
Give me one example. Give me an example of that, because most people don't understand that. I don't understand that.
Truthfully, just about anything that involves fluid motion and something moving from one area to the next can be defined in a differential equation.
Okay.
Right? It's just, it's a way to provide a complex answer to a question with a large variety of variables. So, that could be anything from what the weather's going to be tomorrow,
right,
to what the gear differentials in your motorcycle is going to be.
True. Okay, so did you take more than one diff equation class?
I think what I did take after the first level differential equations is I really liked physics a lot. And so I went into statics.
Yep.
And that's probably the last bit of differentials that I did. I just, I enjoyed them, but you use differentials when you're using calculus, when you're doing advanced calculus, you have to have those differential equations, so it's not quite like you leave them alone after you've taken them. They're there everywhere.
So you must have been a heck of a games person growing up. I mean, if you liked the figuring out problems in math, you must have enjoyed playing card games and whatnot as a child.
You know what? I wasn't quite like that. I was, I think as a child I was quite unto myself. I was the odd little girl that read encyclopedias for fun, so I didn't play many games like that. When I did get involved in game theory, I was already in college and took a probability class that just mesmerized me. I thought it was fascinating.
And was that in your undergrad experience that you got initiated to that? Okay.
Yes.
And it is, because it's a relatively new study that's being taught really the last 20, 25 years. So if if you get experience and exposed to that, it's pretty exciting and intriguing stuff. I totally agree. So you graduate with a math degree. Do you go to work or you go right back to school?
I went right back to school.
Okay. So you go right back to school, and again, so you knew right away that, hey, was it the game theory type coursework that inspired you to go on to the stats side, and were you thinking a career? Did you have a career in mind when you continued?
That's a good question. First of all, I went straight from undergrad to graduate school because mathematics is one of those degrees that's kind of like philosophy. It really trains you for nothing in specific terms, so you can't actually, unless somebody's looking for just a general bachelor's degree, it's not something that you can really involve yourself in deeply. So I knew I had to go forward.
Right.
So that's why.
And so the statistics that you studied, was it more behavioral oriented? So you were working with studies and physicians, and I think you did some work on that side, didn't you?
Well, I took a broad level statistics, and then about 2 years into that, not 2 years, maybe a year into that, I met a biostatistician.
Okay.
Who is fascinating to me that you could manipulate statistical events in the area of biology as well as you could, and I enjoyed seeing the practical application. That's what I really liked. How does it work in the real world?
Right.
And so that biostatistics led me to an internship at a neurology program that I stayed on with.
Okay.
And so that's how I ended up in neuroscience.
Okay. So tell us about that a little bit. Tell us about that transition and what you focused on.
Well, I worked with brain surgeons all the time, and they do have very...
Were you working with a lot of rats also?
No rats, but people.
No, because the reason I ask is because I had a friend of mine who, between undergrad and med school, worked at a neuroscience lab in Ann Arbor with a bunch of brain surgeons, but they were doing a lot of hard research with rats. So I was curious if you were actually crunching a lot of numbers on some of the studies that you were working on.
We were crunching numbers, but it really was on people. I worked the whole time that I was there on something called vagal nerve stimulation and its effect on intractable epilepsy.
Okay.
I worked completely in epileptics and really understanding seizures, and so we had a huge test that a company who created a vagal nerve stimulator wanted us to implant these and see how well they worked. And it turned out that if you had an aura, and I guess a lot of people really don't know about that sort of thing, but prior to having seizures, sometimes people see wavy lines, like you might see at an airport on the tarmac.
Okay.
And that precedes their event. And if they had a precession to an event, that vagal nerve stimulator worked very well. But if they did not, it did not matter if they used it, if they used the wand or not. It wouldn't help them.
So there was an event that the patient kind of triggered themselves because they had experienced it before?
Yes, you had something implanted in your chest, the vagal nerve. It runs right up here. Right. And when you passed a wand over it, it would activate the nerve stimulation because a seizure is actually an explosion of electrical events in the brain.
Okay.
And so what the vagal stimulator does is shoot that off in tiny bursts. So it sort of short circuits what it is that the brain is doing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Interesting. And so did that product, did it ever end up making it to market, or was it something that they just kind of went a different direction?
Well, it was on the market. It just, I don't think it gained any traction because only about 27% of our patients actually had auras.
I see. So
Yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, so you had a valid tool or device that would rectify that situation, but you really couldn't project that it was coming, which is kind of like trading.
Yeah, exactly.
So you did that for a while, and just continue on with a little bit of background how you got into the trading business, because again, you obviously like the gamesmanship and you like doing the homework and study, but where did you finally started? When did you find time and start shifting over into markets?
Well, I'm kind of an all or nothing person. So after I was done with neuroscience, I decided I was going to go into business. I just really didn't want to work for anybody, and I don't really think anybody liked me much working for them either. So I went into business and opened up a recruiting company that did really well for, a dozen years or so altogether.
So what kind of recruiting were you doing?
Analytics.
Okay.
I found people, like myself and other technical folks.
So you were trying to place actuarials and people with very specific math and statistics backgrounds?
No, not those guys. The med guys that have the medical studies and just regular computer scientists.
Okay, interesting. So you're trying to put data aggregators, gatherers together on the medical, pharmaceutical, and device side, maybe a little bit. Interesting.
Yes.
So you're placing those guys that had the brain power with the device and pharmaceutical companies. Is that correct?
I didn't hear the first part of the sentence.
I was just asking. So you were trying to find, let's just again, Shearing Plow is looking for somebody to, grind out the numbers on a study that they're doing for a new drug. Was that what you were helping to place?
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
Good.
Definitely.
Good.
Very
I could see that being a very favorable niche for somebody with your background, and
yes, I could.
And probably had a lot of fun with it.
I did for a while. It was really great. The problem was a lot of people problems when you work in the recruiting business. A lot of them, especially if you have them on staff and contract them out. And it's long hours. If you want to be successful, you really can be in the recruiting business. It's just a nose to the grindstone business, which is not really different to trading, but right. I was just really tired of it. And I saw a Success I can't even remember. Success Magazine had one of those things. And I went to it and I saw a guy named Phil Town who was talking about technical indicators, and I was like a kid in a candy store.
We're hooked. Yeah. So what? So he was talking about charts. Had you ever traded before, or were you
Nothing.
Just an investor at that point?
Oh, I wasn't even an investor.
Okay.
I knew nothing about the stock market except for the fact that stocks were things people bought and sold.
Right.
And I truly am not exaggerating.
So
I had no conceptual idea.
What year was that? I'm curious. I'm always curious to get a reference of when you were sucked into the game, because it is a great game.
2005.
Okay. So 2005, you go to a seminar where somebody's talking about technical indicators. Buy my package and I'll teach you everything you need to know, the whole deal, and you're sucked in. Obviously, context, 2005, we're in a bull market, probably the middle of the run there, 2003 through 2007, so things are good. What tips you over? I mean, why do you leave the security of like you said, it's definitely hard work being a recruiter, because your next meal is always the next meal. You have to kill what you eat what you kill, excuse me. And, you close a deal, you got to close the next one to get paid. That's just the way it works.
Exactly.
And you're right, trading is no different. So you've got that mentality that, okay, I'm persistent, I can do this. I see the correlations. I see a lot. I'm just curious what really threw you over the edge and sucked you in. And did it take you a year before you started doing it full time?
Oh no. At the time I went there, I was already in a state where I was completely burned out.
Okay.
Completely burned out. And, I was just in the position to change gears almost immediately.
Okay.
So I did. And, it didn't take me maybe 5 months before I was trading every day, losing copious amounts of cash.
Losing copious amounts of cash. Okay, good. So my belief, Anne-Marie, seriously, and the reason why I call myself Miss Trade is I've known a handful of female traders, and they've been the best traders and the best mentors to me in life. And I think that women with the right training and background generally are better with money than men are because they don't have those three-letter, that ego that drives us. And so you guys, as women, I think, tend to be more rational and more objective when you come to the bigger picture of money. That's my belief. So, tell us, that transition. And again, five months of losing money, and I think that's typical. I mean, anybody that gets into this business thinking that it's going to be easy, quick, fast, it's never gonna be that way.
Exactly. To go back to your commentary about women, I think women follow rules probably a little better.
Yes.
But maybe we don't have, the average woman maybe doesn't have a crazy ego, but we are normally so unsure, we have a tendency to second guess ourselves a bit more.
Okay.
So that's kind of a trade-off. I think, I wonder why a lot of women do not trade, and I really believe it's because it really is a place that offers no sense of security. Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
You're never secure about anything at all.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a bit terrifying to women. So, I'm not quite sure that women make better traders than men. I just know they're better rule followers. And
okay.
I have some students right now that are fantastic at following rules,
right.
And they're women.
Right.
So that's the big thing. The men, I think, want to pick and choose which rules they want to follow.
Totally agree. I mean, I couldn't agree more. And so, what are the most important rules for any trader, male or female, to learn when they sit down and begin learning this game? And there are a lot of rules that are somewhat, ill-defined, and some that are better defined. What's the most important rules for you as a trader?
That's a very good question. I think it's kind of a difficult question. It's very important to have discipline. It's very, very important to have discipline. I think there are so many trading systems that you can become successful at. It just depends on what kind of discipline you have.
Right.
I think foremost it's discipline, and it's choosing a system and then following it to the letter. Mm-hmm. If you are incapable or unwilling to do that, you will never have consistent success.
Right.
It's just not going to come.
Yeah.
So, if I were to say that would be...
So defining discipline, defining a set of rules that works for you and your style of trading. Would you consider the way you trade day trading, swing trading, long-term investing, technical fundamental? Where do you fall in that, the broad area of trading, investing?
I am a day trader, basically. I do swings. Right now, I think the market is not behaving normally. So I'm very cautious, and I'm doing mostly day trades.
I find it interesting that I've been doing this interview series now for about 4 months, and every single trader I talk to says the same thing that you did, which is this market is really unique. It's different. And it is. And I can't explain it. So What's your take on where we are? It is a very peculiar time in markets. It doesn't matter what market you trade.
That's true. I think that's a good question also. I believe that there's so much indecision that market flux, there's sort of a wider range on the bandwidth of market flux. And that's why we accelerate up and then give back, and then the next day we're up again.
Right.
Because I think there are a lot of camps that are really afraid that they missed the first pop from March and they really want to get in. And then there are those folks that are the eternal skeptics that can't wait to start selling short. And I think all of them are almost equally weighted to some extent. And so they are in this giant tug of war, and it creates all this flux.
Yeah, I agree
so
with
which
you.
is great for trading.
I think you have longs going short and shorts going long, and they're all standing in the same circle with, squirt guns with acid in them, and it hurts. It's just nasty around there.
Indeed.
So discipline. How about risk? How do you define risk when you're looking at markets as a trader? How do you define that and work with that yourself? Is that important?
Oh, absolutely. Oh my goodness. Risk management is almost more important than actually having a good trading system.
Okay, I agree
right?
with that. Yeah.
You can't do it without that. So it definitely is extremely important. I get asked that a lot about what percentages what should I do here and there. I leave people with the one question. I say, look at your account and tell me what the absolute most you're willing to lose in a day. And that's going to be your risk element. And if you're in all your other trades, when you hit your trigger for I'm done losing, then you close your trades.
Right.
Don't open yourself to the what if it turns around, that's great. You hop in a little later and you get something.
Again, yeah. So it's the second part of my name, mistrade, trade like a woman, and also you're going to miss trades every day. Deal with it and grow up. Be a big boy. I mean, that's part of it. You have to accept that you're not going to get every trade, even if it is the perfect setup, and you're not going to take every single trade, and that's okay.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So, do you trade stocks pretty much exclusively?
I work with stocks, options, and the futures.
And
I like them all.
How do you choose your markets? I'm curious how you've fallen. Tell me where you use stocks, options, and futures, because I agree. I trade. Liquidity and volatility is what I need as a trader, and I've traded everything. I tend to concentrate more on futures and options myself now, but I've run portfolios, and I'm curious, how do you determine where you're going to play?
Well, I have those same goals in terms of volatility and such. So I trade the futures when I'm not trading anything else. I think the futures I love the futures because I trade Fibonacci's.
Yep.
And they behave so very well. They're very well behaved. So I enjoy that. The fact of the matter is, though, you really have to keep your eyeballs on that, or else you can get a position go out of hand in moments. So I normally do not trade futures when I'm trading everything else. When I decide to use an option or not really depends on what it is that the stock is doing at the time. If I feel it's been in a volatility squeeze and it's ready to break out, I might buy some premium. If I feel that, it's really had a run and it's time to roll over, and that volatility is going to shrink, I'm going to sell some.
Yeah.
So it really is on an individual basis in terms of where I go and what I do. I'm just looking for what's about to move.
Which I think is important. You need to set the stage, so to speak, for your style, and you sound like you're somewhat predatory and anticipating some of the moves, which I think most traders have to be. Do you have a time frame that you prefer to trade from when it comes to these different vehicles?
No, but I tell you, I have a time frame that I don't like to trade in, and that is 3 to 4.
Okay.
Because I was calling it happy hour earlier in the year because, anything goes.
Right.
So
the last hour of the market, you don't like trading. You like making your money early and going out, leaving.
I do.
Yeah.
I will trade. I will close positions during that time.
Sure, but you're not.
Very rarely will I open them.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I call happy hour actually the first half hour and the last half hour. So for me, that is happy hour, and I find a lot of that's when the rookies on both sides are scrambling. And like you said, I don't like to. Especially, day trading, I don't like to initiate positions during those times of day because it can go either way. And, I find the same, in the same sense, I think, if you want to scalp 9 to 11 or, for the Pacific, 12 to 2 your time is a good time to scalp because markets aren't going anywhere but within a range.
That's true. That is true.
You find the same thing?
Yeah, I agree with that. Yes, I do.
And so trading futures, or stock or options, do you leg into positions or do you say, hey, I'm going to risk X percent or dollars and I'm in as you trade? I'm curious. I always like to ask this question because everybody's got a different entry-exit style.
When I go into a trade, I think about what's the most I'm going to lose here? What do I have at risk? I think a lot of folks, when I was a younger trader, newer in the field, I never thought about what it was that I could lose, only what it is that I could make. And that left me open to quite large drawdowns.
Yes.
And so now I enter a position and I say, all right, let's say you're absolutely incorrect. What is the most that you're going to lose here?
Right.
And once I have that defined in my mind, it's much easier to step into the trade thinking to myself, all right, well, I know where I'm at here. I can move forward, and then I can sort of inch that risk out of the way.
Right. So you'll look again at trends and say, hey, I'm nearing a key support line, so I'm going to buy here and maybe buy a little bit bigger than I would normally because I know I'm going to be out pretty quickly. Or, those types of things come into your mindset. And I agree with that. I think that is, to me, that is probably the most important thing is take care of that risk part of the equation first, and the profits will be there to reward you if you manage that risk first and foremost.
I agree.
Yeah. Do you like to buy or you mentioned buying options? What do you think about selling options?
I'm sorry, say again?
What do you think, buying options versus selling options? Do you have a preference?
Yes. I'm a seller.
Okay.
I'm a seller. I like,
the common person will go, well, gosh, that's risky. You can lose unlimited. But something you said to me early was, hey, I'm looking at what's going on. Obviously, you're a chartist, you're a technician. Fibonacci is something that you use. So when you're looking at, say, Amazon, is that something, their earnings just came out, the stock's run from $90 to $125, and you're thinking, now's the time to maybe sell some volatility, because now people are chasing.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
Exactly.
So, give me some other examples of how you would, look at something like that.
Oh, I love to sell premium just before earnings. And I know a lot of people say, that's insane. But I have a very systematic system about doing that. And folks that follow me know that I'm rarely wrong there. I just have a feel for whether people are going to buy the news or buy the rumor and sell the news. Right? So I have a good sense of that. And then I also use fibs to define those confidence intervals, if I could use a statistical term.
Yeah.
And that's where I'll put my strikes.
So you'll say, so if I'm going to try to interpret what I think you're doing in certain occasions. you're selling probably strangles, both puts and calls.
Yeah, naked.
Out of a range that, again, you think, it's most likely not going to go. If a stock's trading 90, I'm going to sell the 65s and the 125s on both ends and try to capture that easy money, if you will.
Exactly. And if the volatility is way pumped up, then you know what, the stock can go against you and you'll still be positive.
Exactly.
Like I did Green Mountain Coffee Roasters this week before earnings, and I was way wrong. I mean, I had sold the 70 put, but it was still positive.
Well, they were probably $7, $8, and the stock went to high 60s, something like that. Yeah, it's interesting. So, do you backspread though? I'm curious. So do you leave yourself naked on something like that, or do you, if you're selling a put, are you also buying a call, a cheaper call below it, or you really go, you're willing to go into that with pretty, have you had instances where that's, caught you?
Not yet.
Why do you think that is? I mean, how many? Obviously, you have every quarter that the opportunity for that to come up. Do you think you'll run into areas where you're going to get bigger moves than you're anticipating?
Yes, but for me, I'm extremely selective about what I do those on. I don't do naked strangles on any stock that I am not completely aware of its rhythm.
Okay.
Right? Every stock has a particular rhythm. It moves and contracts and expands in certain reliable percentages.
Yeah, I agree.
And so I won't do anything like that on a stock that I do not know very, very well. Also, I won't do anything like that unless the volatility is pumped way up.
Okay.
And I won't do anything like that if it's not sitting at significant fib levels in the first place.
Okay. So you're really, you've got your screening process down so that you're, you might have what's a typical day for Anne-Marie? How many names, how many trades do you do?
Well, a typical day is really what I think makes me a good trader is I'm very fluid. Mm-hmm. And so I never go into the day thinking, all right, I'm going to do 10 trades.
Right.
Or I'm going to make X dollars. Even though I have a target, my goal is to execute perfectly. Mm-hmm. If I execute perfectly, I'm going to get the results that I want.
I agree.
So some days there'll be so many opportunities, I might make 20 round trips.
Right.
Some days I'll make 2, and then some days I'll just sit on my hands all day, only because I truly believe if you don't know your edge or you can't find an edge, you're gambling. Yeah,
well, and to use the old poker analogy, I mean, if you can't find the sucker at the poker table, you're probably most likely the sucker. So, and I think it's the same thing when it comes to trading. I think you have to pick those moments. How about days? Do you find certain days better suited for your style of trading? Are Tuesdays and Thursdays better versus Mondays and Fridays, anything like that?
I don't think so. Not for me. No.
How about the calendar? Do you like certain times to, you mentioned again putting on volatility trades into earnings, but do you prefer ways to put on different types of calendars, trades and strikes and diagonals and those types of things?
You mean depending on the time of the month?
Do you find that you have a better rhythm, the first part of the month, the last part of the month, the middle part of the month, closer to expiration?
I haven't been that analytical about that. I know during expiration week there's normally some great day trades to be had. Right. But as far as I do notice the end of the quarter. I have a tendency to do pretty well at the end of the quarter because I can catch things as they're rolling over. And I have a sense of that redistribution based on the stocks that I look at, because I really only look at maybe about 50 to 75 of the same stocks because I want to understand their patterns very well and then just move along with them.
And how do you define that 50 to 70 base that you're looking at? And I'm sure you rotate stocks in and out of it.
I do rotate them. They have to be liquid. I don't do a liquid. They're usually, more than $20 a share, but they might be 10.
Okay.
They're very rarely less than that.
Right.
They're high beta. That's my bag. Love the high beta. I know it freaks a lot of people out, but because I'm such a rapid trader, high beta is the best thing in the world.
So you're probably trading smaller cap, but trading a million shares a day type thing.
750,000 is my limit.
Okay.
Yeah.
But again, but probably the Russell 2000 is kind of your sweet spot. Those stocks that fall into that area that are trading 750,000 shares or not.
Not necessarily. Caterpillar has had some amazing volatility lately.
Right.
Right? And so I don't drill down into any of those specific things. I just kind of look around and I see who's in a squeeze. I see who's starting to move. I see whose candles are getting bigger.
Right.
And I just make decisions that way.
What do you think psychologically is the most important thing that you bring to the profit side of your ledger?
Wow. Prepare for the worst and expect the best.
Okay.
So emotionally, if you are unprepared for the unforeseen, you will act in irrational ways. And irrational ways will never make you money. Not time after time, it won't.
What's been the most trying time or period in your trading? Can you recall?
The most trying time? In the beginning, when I was a complete idiot.
But how did you change that? What did you do to change that?
Oh, wow.
First of all, you recognized it.
Oh, yes. Yes, I was very willing to admit my complete idiocy.
Okay.
So I read a lot. I watched a lot. Brian Shannon's just really great. I love that guy. And he's just so complete in explanation. And he really taught me a lot, especially about trading multiple time frames.
Right.
And then it's funny about the Dan Passarelli that I got to see. Dan is really great. He's the guy that actually opened the door for me on truly understanding how to trade the Greeks.
Yeah.
And that book that he's got is extremely simple. It's very simple.
It's a good book. Trading, what is it? I'm looking at it right here.
Option Greeks.
Trading option Greeks. Yeah, exactly. And it is. It's very simple. Versus, and again, I've had Larry McMillan on, the grand poobah of all things options, and I've read his book, but Dan just does a fine job of relating that down. And again, there's, part of me wanting to do the series, Anne-Marie, is there's so much good information out there that all of us call and share from each other, and it's good that I hear you say that, because you're not going to get this stuff from your standard wirehouse broker. You're just not. And
right.
But the information is out there. To use the X files, the truth is out there, and you have to search it out, but you have to figure out what works for you, and what the best things for you are for a trader, time frames, etc. And I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your thoughts with us on the subject today.
Thank you very much for having me. I feel pretty honored, and I'm glad that I got to be a part of everything. It's really great.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. And again, we can follow you at your blog, AnneMarieTrades.com, and on Twitter, we can follow you at AnneMarie2006. So continued success to you. And again, I give hats off to again the women traders out there, because you guys have a certain something that I'm trying to tap into as a very male, and it's powerful. I mean, it really is. So I appreciate you hanging in there with me today.
Thank you.